Be more interested in making yourself valuable first, then make yourself invaluable. That is to be of service to solve those problems that the organization is after, and more about how to help people do that. Everybody notices the folks that are willing to pitch in and do more and are really happy to recognize those folks.
GovCon has a language of its own: acronyms, compliance, contracting, and when you're new, it can feel a little bit like alphabet soup. And no one hands you a decoder ring. So that's why we're here. I'm your host, Amanda Ziadeh, and this is Rookies to Rockstars, where we get real about how people actually break in, level up, and lead in government contracting. Some people find their own way into GovCon through a career shift, others through service, and our next guest has done both. Garry Schwartz, Chief Operating Officer at HII Mission Technologies, spent 21 years in the Marine Corps before moving into industry, where he now leads operations for one of the country's largest defense technology firms. Today, Garry shares hard-won lessons on being visible without chasing the spotlight, making bold moves with humility, and why patience is still a power skill. We'll also talk about hiring for fit, growing talent, and turning lateral moves into real momentum. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rookies to Rockstars, a short, sharp series where we ask bold, smart people one thing. What do you know now that you wish someone had told you at the start? I'm your host today, Amanda Ziadeh, and our guest is Garry Schwartz, Chief Operating Officer at HII Mission Technologies. Garry, we're so glad to have you on the show today.
I'm glad to be here, Amanda. Appreciate it.
So I understand by doing a little bit of research that you've had a pretty cool path from 21 years in the Marine Corps to leading operations at one of the biggest defense tech firms in the country. Go back to the earliest days stepping into the private sector. What's something that you wish someone had told you right at the start?
When you get out of the military, you come out with this ethos of the importance of the mission, taking care of your people, and not a lot of interest in people that like fanfare. And then I discovered towards the very end of my military career that if people aren't seen, then a lot of great people go unnoticed. And so the thing I wish I had known then was the idea of being visible. And don't confuse being visible with someone that just loves to be, the center of attention. But by the same token, if you're really a wallflower and no one ever knows the great work you do, then a lot of opportunities can pass you by that, frankly, you might have been the best choice for. Be known in a favorable way by your boss and your boss's boss and those leaders around you, to include your peers, and go beyond just doing well, right? Go beyond what's expected. Do what you think needs to be done in addition to, not in contrary to the direction you've been given, but don't be afraid to go a bit more. Even if it's something they didn't want in the end, they'll appreciate the extra effort.
That's an interesting lesson. And I'm curious, just going back a little bit, serving the nation from a military perspective or a government contracting perspective is a particular kind of passion. So what drove you to join the military at a young age?
So I literally showed up in boot camp on my 18th birthday, the terrible birthday present, all these people yelling at you. But for me, the kind of background I came from was a bit poor and didn't have much of a future. And it was a way to immediately inject structure and a purpose beyond myself into my life. And it was perfect. It's exactly what I needed. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but was exactly what I needed.
Is there one thing that sticks with you every day that the military taught you?
Oh, it's the simple things sometimes. You show up at a reception and you feel like you can't eat till everybody else has eaten first, as part of the taking care of your troops kind of thing. But beyond that, I would say, I always remind people that while we're in industry and we do have to make a profit to continue to survive, the motivation is to beat the competition, to give our forces what they need and otherwise might not get.
So fast forwarding a little bit now to that transition from military to civilian life, which, we know isn't an easy one. Was there a moment that caught you off guard, and what mindset helped you get through it?
I would say if you worry about what everybody else around you thinks, boy, that can immobilize you. If you worry you're not going to be good enough, that can immobilize you. So it's the idea of, if your motivation is to do the best you can and to do the right thing for the right reasons, then have no fear. Don't worry about failure. Don't worry about not knowing enough. Don't worry about looking weak. I used to tell people I'm going to ask more questions of you than anybody you've ever met. And I hope you're able to answer them because I don't know the answers. And so we'll figure this out. But that's what I would tell you is probably the biggest thing. You get engineers who are used to very rigid things and they don't like to get outside the areas they don't know. And people who know me will tell you that they can't really tell what I really know from what I might not really know because it always sounds very confident. And the truth is, I have a conviction in what I believe, and I try to be clear about what I know versus what I believe. But it's that conviction and the lack of fear.
Do you remember any of the emotions you were having during this transition? Were you nervous, scared, excited? Were there any mentors that kind of helped ease that transition for you? What was that time like for you?
It was concerning. I had 3 children that still needed to eat and eventually go to college. I had a wife, and you get out and you think that you were doing these amazing things. And when you get out, nobody really cares. It's about what are you going to do now and going forward. And certainly there's some former military that recognize, and depending on what your background was. And the transition assistance doesn't go very far. Remember, they kept trying to tell you how to take a resume and civilianize it. And as soon as you civilianize it, it gets lost in the sauce, right? The things don't make sense anymore. I actually was going to get out and join a healthcare company and go on the road and help optimize hospitals, for which I had no background except academically. In the end, I decided not to do that because that work was going to pay less. It was going to be gone longer, and it was easier just to go into the defense industry. So I wound up back in defense again, where my experience fit better. What I try to do now is if I get a call from somebody who's former military that is looking for feedback and idea, just somebody to tell them, how did you get there from here? I'm happy to have that discussion because there really wasn't a lot of that available to me when I got out.
I bet. Yeah. One of my questions actually was how can young people transitioning out of the military into industry apply their military knowledge to the civilian business world? Are there many resources at the time for that? Or is that something you got to use your instincts for?
People always say it's about the leadership or it's about the idea that you show up for work every day on time and things that I'm not so sure are the real big differentiators anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, do what you're passionate about, whether it's back into defense or something else. There is this, my kids always tell me they do the work to live, they don't do the live to work. I think it's do something that you care about and you can feel proud of accomplishing once you've done it. And then it doesn't matter what it is.
One thing I can relate to with rising professionals is we love to hear our peers' mistakes. Kind of makes us feel better about the path that we're on. That there is a silver lining on the other side of mistakes that we can make throughout our career path. So we've all had those moments that sting a little bit. What mistake have you made that you now see as a turning point?
I wouldn't say a mistake that I see as a turning point, to be honest with you. I could say that I've made a lot of mistakes that made me a late bloomer because, again, I wasn't being seen. I was quietly telling myself, everybody knows how I'm doing. I'm just going to keep quietly working behind the scenes, making people successful. And so that was more of a pattern. And then, since being in leadership, I would say the mistake I make more often than I would like, which is hiring the wrong people. And sometimes it's about fit. Sometimes it's about really a misalignment of their goals versus what we are looking for. I would say that's the one I watch the most now because a lot of what I do now is to set the players in place, give them the conditions to be successful, prompt them when they need to. But if I get the wrong person, that's a mistake that haunts you for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. What has that mistake or any other mistakes that you've made taught you? Or have you looking back thinking, I actually needed that one? That was something that I needed to learn.
I will tell you that when you're in the military in general, you understand hierarchy and it's ingrained. Even impatient people learn some modicum of patience when you're in that sort of a situation. So I would say patience has been the biggest thing that I often don't see in younger people just starting out. It's the usual thing. And I remember telling my parents' generation the same thing. oh, you don't understand. It's different now. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the way it was back in the covered wagon days. It's
Yep.
different. And every generation has told the generation before them that same story. And it's always different, but it's always still the same when it comes to people and those kinds of things. So the circumstances might be different. The technology is certainly different, right? The opportunities are different, but the people aspects have probably never really changed.
Hmm. Yep, that makes sense. I'd love to get into some current initiatives at HII, but I have a question for you kind of about the trajectory of your industry career. What was it like when you finally got your foot in the door in industry, moving up, gradually getting more responsibility in this industry, getting different roles and becoming a leader? What kind of took you on that trajectory path?
Again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about be seen and don't be afraid, be bold.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be careful when you speak out. You got to time it right. And you want to address the issues that your bosses are wrestling with, right? Not your own personal issue, not like
Mm-hmm.
the world should make a right hand turn right now because I say it should,
Right.
versus the problem they're struggling with, and give them something to fall back on. And that creates the opportunity for people. So if you're really listening to what they're struggling to do and give them an answer to their problem, not your problems or the ones that you see throughout the organization, but give them the answer to what they're looking for, that creates the opportunity. And usually those are the people that somebody will turn to and say, well, you need to be involved in this,
Mm-hmm.
right? If not, you need to lead it. And that's what really got me on the trajectory that landed me where I'm at today.
So I understand that HII has a platform, My Career Compass, which helps employees map out their futures. How are you involved in the support of this platform, and how has your own idea of success evolved since the early days? How do you kind of use that as you communicate with rising employees?
My Career Compass was really born out of, I identified a need to our talent acquisition team to quickly look across all the people we had and find the right people for us to submit as part of these pretty onerous proposals where we had to provide hundreds of people and they had to be perfectly aligned to the positions that we were bidding. And so doing that, the talent team came back and said, hey, we found a tool that will do that and yet so much more, because the same artificial intelligence capabilities that will allow you to do that will allow us to help reshape where our employees are looking to help drive their career. So that was an easy thing to support and get behind. And I think the further things that, and it's not just me, but the whole leadership team has done, which is as we've identified career paths, we've identified key attributes, areas for development, really trying to match up ambition and position, right, with the needs of the business. I think it's actually been a pretty good use of technology.
And while we're on the topic of HII, how did you land here in this role? I'm just curious. Is there a background story?
So I landed at HI because I was at a business in the second company that I had joined, and there was nowhere for me to go. There was nowhere for me to move up. I had a good boss. They kind of had decided that I was good at one thing versus more because they never knew my background from before that. And I saw that the only way I was going to go anywhere was if I was going to go out laterally. And so I did. And it turned out HII had just acquired a services company. And I thought that was strange that a shipbuilding company has acquired a services company. And I'd spent my industry career in services. And I thought maybe there's an opportunity there. I walked in and talked to my boss, who's my boss today. And I said, look, I don't care what you do. These 3 or 4 things need to be done first because we're dying and we need to get some things moving or we're not going to have a business for somebody to take over when the time comes. And my boss said to me, so are you asking to do that job? I said, no, I'm not asking to do that job. I'm asking to do the job you're looking for to run the business. But this needs to happen now and can't wait. And so that really put me on his radar and led to him considering me.
I also think it's so important to note that lateral moves are a part of progressing, especially when they set you up for those progressions. I think that's might be something scary that you look at as a rising professional and don't think is the next right move, but can be or is.
In my case, to be honest with you, I had resigned myself that my lot in life was to make more junior, younger people successful because my time must have passed. And
Interesting.
so when a year later I'm going forward saying our sky is falling and we need to take action, and then all of a sudden we're going to actually consider you for this job, it was a nice surprise. I agree with you. Lateral moves provide opportunities and sometimes not the way you expect.
So the C-suite wasn't a goal of yours, or did you not?
Oh, it was always a goal of mine, but at some point after 21 years in the Marine Corps, and I'd been in industry at that point on the order of 11, 12 years. I figured, well, my time has passed. Look at the fast movers, and I'd already gone past that age. I was the age of some CEOs and figured I'm probably not going to be able to do that, but I'll do other things and I'll enjoy the other things. And circumstances change.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So another question that we love asking our guests on this show is, considering you've worked with and mentored a different talent at different stages of their career, what's something that you think the next generation needs to let go of if they really want to grow into strong leaders?
One is the patience. Young people are not known for patience,
Hmm.
right? Because everything moves so fast in the information age that we're in. The other is be more interested in making yourself valuable first, then make yourself invaluable. That is to be of service to solve those problems that the organization is after, and more about how to help people do that. Everybody notices the folks that are willing to pitch in and do more and are really happy to recognize those folks. And they don't see those as the competition, if you will.
Hmm.
They see them as people that are helping try to make things better. In general, there are certainly examples that you can find of the 30-year-old billionaire. There's one out there right now. But
Hmm.
for the vast hundreds of millions of us that aren't that lucky, right? Most time, career success takes some time, and experience is not a bad thing to gain along the way. It tells
Hmm.
you things to quickly avoid, things that you want to really emphasize, and it's always changing. And the last I would say is we often will talk amongst ourselves and say, it's actually easy to hire a smart person. It's really hard to hire a smart person with great soft skills who people want to work with. And when you find that combination coupled with a willingness to actually be energetic, action oriented, and get stuff done, that's a keeper.
I was curious when you were talking about helping junior level people kind of rise in their careers. What's one common mistake you see them make, and how do you help them, or you used to see them make, and how did you help them through it?
One is it comes from this impatience and this desire to be recognized
Hmm.
because you just don't understand. I will make a heaven and earth move. And again, they start to focus on what they see as the problems they believe should be everybody's concern
Hmm.
versus solving the problems that the leadership has put in front of them. Because their time as a leader is really their chance to set the agenda on what the problems are. But before they get there, they've got to show that they can make other people's priorities their priorities.
And Gary, what would you say to someone who also feels like their time has passed to rise to the level of success that they dreamed they could, but don't think is possible anymore?
It's never too late, depending upon what it is you're willing to call success, right? So I am probably not going to be the next CEO of IBM. I'm over it. I'm not going to be a NASA astronaut. I'm over that.
Ah.
But as long as people are willing to be flexible in what is success,
Mhm.
then I think you can find it, frankly, at any age.
And going back to the topic of transitioning from military to civilian life, I'm curious, any advice for industry leaders in terms of what industry can do to make this military to industry transition smoother, or even to help to get people right out of college, get their start, that transition? Can industry play a role in this?
Yeah, so really two completely different things. So hit the college one first. Yeah, and a lot of folks in our industry and in other industries do this, right? They engage on campus. And in some places, we even try to engage at the high school level. And I would say in Hawaii, we even try to engage at the middle school level. And so getting involved early to present opportunities to people in terms of career paths and alignment of interests and internships, right? The chance to try before you buy, both for the company as well as for the potential employee. And everybody's doing that. And that's a great way for, young people, even while they're still in college, to figure out what they're really interested in. Because you've got to get started. If you're constantly jumping track to a different track, right, down a different path, you can turn around after 15 years and have gone nowhere. So the idea is you got to put some time in on the track before you decide you need to jump to a different one. With respect to the retiring military or former military, I'd say it's easiest, obviously, in the defense industry, but if there's other areas they want to get out to, do the research. It's so much easier to do research now than it used to be, and try to see what aligns to your interests, and then be bold. Don't be obnoxious. Just because you've done something for 20 years, you can come into somebody else's backyard and immediately, with no experience in what they've actually been doing, believe that you can just step in and do it all. You should come in with a little bit of humbleness with that boldness. And what you're really going to pitch is how quickly you can come up to step on things and make a difference, and how willing you are to fit into an organization and its priorities.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that perspective. I think it's something that a lot of people go through, obviously, on this transition, and it's different for everybody, but industry can definitely help smooth that transition and help people progress. All right. So before we leave, we love to ask a question that kind of throws you off guard, is a little silly and a little bit irrelevant. What's a civilian habit that still drives you nuts after 21 years in military with that precision?
It's actually, usually my wife tells me it's the other way around. It's the
Really?
things that I do that drive her nuts, or the things I say, and she'll go, "Where'd you get that?" I go, "Doesn't everybody say that?" And then she tells me, "Nobody says that." I go, "I've been saying that for 40 years.
Uh-huh.
I go, "I thought everybody did that. I thought that was, you sure that's not a regional problem?" No. So it's really more the other way.
Okay.
I've been in industry as a civilian for as long as I was in the Marines. So 21 years.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and I would say I am over the hump. I don't wear my uniform secretly, and I couldn't get in it if I wanted to. And I like seeing the people, and I don't expect people in all kind of walks of life, and I don't expect people to have the same background that I have. So it's been a long time, but usually it's because I'll say something or do something, and people will just be like, "Where did that come from?" And then I have to tell the story that goes with it, and that's probably painful.
Do you eat now at the same time as everyone else around you?
I sometimes will even slip in the middle.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Garry, thank you so much. This was really fantastic conversation. Thanks for sharing your time and your perspective. It's so important to hear from people who actually lived through these transitions and experience and share that with the next generation. So we appreciate you being here.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Amanda.
Thanks for listening to Rookies to Rockstars. GovCon doesn't come with a playbook, but these stories might be the next best thing. Follow the show, share it with someone still figuring it out, and connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you.